Hi, everybody. This is Mike Leahy, and thanks for joining us today for our Pulse dashboard and reporting software overview. And this is my picture here. Can everybody see me and or see our pictures and hear okay?
Yep.
Okay. I'm joined today by Ann Hayner. Some of you know Ann from previous jobs that she's had with us, but she's joining us today. And housekeeping wise, if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand using the GoToMeeting window, or you can type in your question and Ann will answer the question as we go along. So we can all shake hands over the phone. Thanks for joining us today. We have a lot of people working at home. It's a lot of confusion going on. We will all get through this together. And this is just a little bit of an overview. If you're not familiar with our company, we have been in business forever. We have worked with the Macola software forever. We specialize in manufacturing and distribution industries, and we focus on streamlining your Macola workflow. What brings us together today is this core competency that we have of extracting data out of your Macola database to help make better and faster decisions. So we'll hear about this more and more, faster and better decisions. Going the wrong way here. Okay. This sort of answers the question of what can the Pulse software do? How can it help your company? Everything in the system is real time. Everything in dashboard is real time. And in addition to just providing a bunch of reports that sort of regurgitate and list data, we have a tremendous amount of pre-built analysis reports. So this is not a do-it-yourself software dashboard. Everything comes right out of the box. We have people that are using the software within a couple hours of having it installed. But the whole idea is to minimize custom reports. And those reports might be Excel queries or Access or Crystal reports or SSRS reports. And you'll see an emphasis as we go along. There's a big emphasis on pinpointing shortages. And when we talk about shortages, we're talking about pinpointing shortages that are preventing the manufacturing of your products and the shipping of the products. So the on-time shipping is in the customer service area. The on-time shortages of inventory is in the manufacturing area. And we'll get deeper into those. And we've taken the Macola database. The Macola database is an excellent database. And we've taken that information and moved it around, and we've developed advanced concepts that are not in the standard Macola software, and we'll see some of those as we go along. These are the modules. Probably a lot of the people who are attending today are using the Macola, using the dashboard software, or are brand new to the software. So you may know this already. These are the modules that come with our dashboard. Most people purchase all of the modules because they're all integrated to one another. But it is possible to pick and choose certain modules to start with. And maybe you can then use other modules as you go along. Well, today we're changing our overview webinar, and we're going to focus on the 10 ways that Pulse brings you the right information at the right time. And I thought rather than walk through each of the modules and talk about them, what I thought is this gives us more of an agenda of how we want to structure today. And this is being recorded, and maybe by the end of the week, or I think she's going on vacation next week, so probably by the end of this week on our YouTube channel, we will have today's recording for those who maybe want to see it again or those who were not able to attend. So these are the 10 items that we've come up with here. It was a real struggle because we have a lot of depth within the product. But the first one is just the basic top level customer orders, the customer orders that are existing, the ones that are pending that have not been shipped, the orders that have been shipped this year versus last year. Just the general overview of where we are as an organization. The next top one that we want to talk about is our cash flow, forecasting cash flow issues. And we've made some significant enhancements to the software because of the coronavirus, the pandemic that's going on for companies who are being affected by this shutdown or partial shutdown. We also want to look at on-time, on-time customer shipment analysis. That's something where we're taking the standard Macola data again, and we're providing some advanced concepts. I mentioned a little bit earlier that we want to talk about pinpointing shortages, and those are shortages in the production area and shortages. So in the production area, they're components. In the shipping area, they would be finished goods. We also want to talk about the sales analysis capabilities that we have in the software. In the Macola software, there's no capability to put in your sales forecast and then be able to track your actual sales versus your forecast or your budget. And we have that capability. We've added that capability. And when we first started off, the customer that we were working with said that he wanted to be able to analyze anything by anything. And we'll tell you more about that as we go along. The number 6 item is inventory status. And we've added a tremendous amount of additional fields that help you analyze the status of your inventory, trend analysis, months of inventory on hand, inventory turns, date of last activity. That you'll see as we go along that just a tremendous amount of additional information that helps you better manage and analyze your inventory. We also have a tremendous amount of capability for costing analysis, and that's mostly for those people who are on standard costing and want to be able to analyze costs. And what we're seeing is that in our analyses, we have the costing for people who are doing high volume at standard costing and those who are doing low volume at standard costing. So we also have what we call our purchase order generator. So the idea of dashboard is not only to give you the information at your fingertips, but also to eliminate or totally eliminate the manual keying of purchase orders. And that's a huge goal, and we'll show you what we have on that. We also have a lot of reports that talk about past due purchase orders. And that's an area you might wonder, well, why are we even talking about purchase orders? And that is because purchasing is a forward-looking activity, and the cleaning up of and the closing out of purchase orders is something that is not done on a widespread basis. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. The 10th item I have is sort of it affects the entire software, and that is the ability to customize the reports, your ability to customize the reports without any technical know-how, not having to involve any IT people, go back and forth, I want this here, move this around, change the sorting. You can do all of this yourself, and we'll talk more about that as we go along. Okay, this is the mantra of our dashboard software, that Macola has the data. In other words, Macola has the raw data, but Pulse brings you the information. So Macola has the raw data, but Pulse brings you the information at your fingertips to make better and faster decisions. So let's go over to the software, and I'm going to go down the line of the 10 items that we've talked about. I have them written in front of me and printed out. But before we do this, just for people who are maybe don't know anything about the software, and somebody said, oh, you need to take this webinar today, take a look at the software, because you're going to be using it in your job. So let's just use this this screen right here. This is the customer order summary. And we'll use this as an example, and you'll see what I mean. This talks about orders that have been entered. They may or may not have been shipped for the month or for the year. Invoiced orders, and then your backlog, open orders that still have to be shipped. So this is month to date versus budget, year to date versus budget, and this budget is coming out of the general ledger. This is not your sales budget, this is the general ledger budget. And then where were you at the end of the same month last year? So in our database, our demonstration database, we were in June, so this is what it looked like the end of last year, June, year to date the prior year, and then the total prior year. So we have a lot of information here, but what I really wanted to say is that you just simply single click and drill down to see the underlying information. So let me do that again. I escaped to get back out. I'm positioning my cursor over a field. In this case, it's the entered, the 629,000, and I'm just single clicking with my left mouse. Okay, so it brought up a screen that shows me the customer information, and it's just summary by customer. Now, if I click on the individual customer, look down below here, you're seeing this is a secondary drill down. So I can click on any of these and see, and this is what's been entered for the month. Okay, so this is the first thing. You'll say, well, okay, this is fine. But now what I'm going to do is I prefer to have the customer name over here. And I'm the product manager, and it doesn't make sense for me to look at it this way. I need to know the state. I need to know the state of this customer or the territory or some feeling of where they're located. So what I'm going to introduce you to now is this ability to change the report very, very easily. And I'll show you. We're just going to click on right here. This is what we call the grid or the column chooser or the matrix, but it contains all the fields that have anything to do with this topic, which in this case is orders that we've added. We want to add the state. So I'm just going to type in state, S-T-A-T-E. Here's the customer state. I double click, bring it over here. I pressed OK, and there's the state. I want the state to be over here. So there's nobody listening today that can't do that. Click here, type in the word state, double click, bring it over here, and then press OK. So what we've done to make this easy is we've converted all the fields that are in Macola to business English. So when we first started this, I was given an Excel spreadsheet that had 5,000 or 10,000 rows on it, and we converted all the technical stuff to business English. So if you hover over the field, if you're technical listening to this, you can see what the technical name is. But the idea is you want the terms code, you put in terms. If it's some kind of a code, you're not even sure what it's called, you just put in CD, it brings up all the fields that have codes. Okay, so how does this work? The next time I come back in here, it remembers where I left off, and there's no save function. So here it is, the same place. I added the state to it. Now, maybe your coworkers could care less about the state. So it remembers it. So the changes you're making are just for you. You want the customer name over here. Other people want it the other way. It remembers it just for you. There's no save function. When you make this change, it saves it instantly. We've talked about this double drill down. Everything in the dashboard, again, what we're doing is we're going over the overview of the software. Everything in the software can be exported to Excel, and you click on this Excel export button up here. Then you also can print, but not too many people print anymore because you can always go back and reconstruct the data and print it as of a prior day. But I'm going to print this. I'm going to click on this print button, and what's going to happen is it'll show me a print image, and I can print it from here. But really what I'm wanting to show you at this point is that I can now save this. I can export it as a PDF file. I can export it as a PDF file and email it to a customer, to the boss, to a coworker, to a vendor. So what we're doing now is we're saying that, I'll go back here to the beginning. Every screen that we have, use a single click to drill down to the underlying detail. You are free to make changes to your heart's content. If you need to add another field, let's say you want to add the terms code as we talked about, you go to this grid, you put in whatever you think it is, TER terms code, AR terms code. I'm going to click it here. I want the description also. And I just double click. I press OK. There it is. It's only there for me. And the idea from this point is that I can export all this information to Excel. I can print it. I can PDF it. I can email it. Oh, there's one thing I forgot to mention to you. Maybe you don't care about it being by customer. Maybe you want to see it by item, and you want to see the margins that are coming in. as these are all the items that are on order. Now, if I drill down, this time when I drill down, I'm seeing the order number. So you can pre-store a whole bunch of different ways. This is what we call our save and share. In my case, I have a couple things by customer. I have some by item. I have one by required ship date, so I can look at it by date. So that's another little bonus, is that whenever you drill down, you can have different ways of looking at things. Even at this level, I can hit export. I can hit click on this E or the print image, these icons, and export it to Excel. Now, one thing I forgot is when you first start the software in the morning, you just simply click on, you can say refresh the current module, you can say refresh all modules, or what you can do is just take an individual box. Now you're seeing these boxes can all be moved anywhere you want to, any place you want to, and you can resize them. Or if you just want to refresh one single box, you just double click. And the way the software works is, let's say that you are you're in meetings all day long. What the software does, if 60 minutes has passed since you refreshed last, it goes back and does another full refresh from scratch. So in other words, if there are orders that were keyed in, orders that were invoiced, changes that might have been made to the inventory since you were in it last, then it will do a refresh. So the idea is that the information is always there at your fingertips. Okay, so I wanted to go over this. We're not into our top 10 yet, but I wanted to go over just the overview. In other words, I took this one report. You're seeing I can move these, and these reports can all be copied just like Excel. I can copy this report. I can move it to another tab. So the idea is, and I forgot to mention, these are the modules: executive, financial control, customer service. So I just click on here to get the individual modules, and then I have tabs within each module. I have a lot in inventory. Here's purchasing, and so on. So this is the way it's organized. We have the different modules. I listed them earlier in the PowerPoint. And then I have reports within the module that are broken out by these tabs. And when you want to create your own tab, then you just hit the plus sign, which is squeezed right over here, and then it creates a blank tab, and then you can add a report or copy and paste in a report. Okay, so let's talk about the first of our 10 top items, and that is top level pending customer orders or invoice customer orders. So this report right here that we already have looked at, this gives us our first level of month to date. How are we doing versus the same month last year? How are we doing year to date, and so on. We also have a report down here, this open customer orders, and this breaks it out by increments of days. So this is my obligations up through today, through the end of the month, and then the next 30, 60, 90 days. So part of this overview also now tells you that you promised 97,000. I promised 97,000 to my customers, but I only have 37,000 available to ship. So now we're into the next level of the high level of our software. We not only can, it's nice that we got the orders, but we have to be able to ship them on time. So this is our first level. This is our second level. We also can see down below here, actually it's off to the side, we can start seeing our orders coming in and out of the company day by day by day. So this is showing us the flow of orders coming in. This is showing the flow of orders coming out. If I had another copy of this next to this, I could look at what my performance looks like this year versus last year. And we just have a lot of reports here. These are monthly margin graphs. All of the graphs are monthly as well as daily. So here's monthly margins, orders that were entered. If I go back over here, this is showing me my on-time shipping, and this is showing me my on-time shipping for the entire company. So these are just some overviews. We have something that comes with the software called a management overview, and this is the result of what we use internally with our company. And it's this one right here, and this shows you basically that you are in this case, this database is 1% a year, 1% ahead year to date from last year, and they are 68% for meeting last June's performance. So the idea is, how are you doing? This is the game of running your company. How are you doing year to date versus last year? How are you doing month to date versus the same month last year, and so on. And all the reports that we're looking at today, these come standard with the software. And if you see something that's not in your not on your list, and we have a few people in the audience today who have been using the software for a number of years, and we appreciate that. And you are not going to have these new reports, so you'll have to just send in a note. You'll have my phone number. If you go up to help, and you have unlimited phone support and unlimited training, so you can send an email and say, support, I don't have this report, or you can call. Okay, so we've gone through number one, which is our top level, what's happening in the company top level. One thing I didn't mention was this report of on-time shipping might look great, but it doesn't satisfy the need to know the details of where do you need to make improvements. So you can take all of this information, and in my case, I'm creating what's called custom tabs, and this one I'm looking at it by customer. So let's take a look at Cincinnati Distributors. They're one of our top customers. Okay, this is what their on-time shipping looks like. If we look at another customer, it's going to change drastically. And the idea is, maybe you're not concerned about customer. Maybe you want to look at it by product category. So in my database, my imported products are kind of hot right now. So I'm going to go to imported products, IMP. And this is now showing me by product category. And what we're looking at, we're letting this refresh. We're looking at the on-time shipping graph. So we're going to let this refresh. I'm going to move this over. Okay. So we'll let this finish. So woo. So here we don't have a really great story. We're inconsistent. We're kind of sporadic in our ability to ship the imported products out the door. But just think about if you were trying to do something like this in Macola directly, this report, on-time shipping, product category by customer, whatever, impossible. Almost nothing's impossible if you give it enough time. Okay, so now we're going to talk about number two, and that is we're forecasting cash flow. So I'm going to go to my financial tab. This is the financial tab that we've had for years and years. It basically allows you to take all of your incoming and outgoing cash, as well as non-Macola items, my payroll, my loan, these are not in Macola. And then I can create either months or weeks across the top. I can have up to 24 buckets. And within each one of those, as you would expect, I can drill down and see the underlying details. So what makes this unique is for things like accounts receivable, customers do not pay you based on your due dates of the invoice. They pay you based on how they pay everybody else or how they traditionally pay you. So within the cash flow setup, you can say, I want to look at my cash flow for accounts receivable based on my average days to pay, the average days to pay for each individual customer. So the change that we made was, let's say that all of your customers, you're anticipating a reduction in your cash flow, and maybe you're saying to yourself, okay, you're doing what-if analysis. What if the customers, our customers, started paying us 20 days late? So look what happens to this 194. It went down to 22. So this had a drastic impact on our cash flow. And you might say if everybody pays us 10% late, or so you have an option of days late or percentage late. Okay, so that's we've gone over number one and number two. And we want to talk about, well, I guess really I've already talked about it. This is number 3, which is the on-time customer shipments analysis. We talked a little bit about it, but let's go into the customer service module and make believe that you are the customer service manager. Your team has really worked hard to get the orders processed, to discuss with the customer when negotiating when you were going to promise to have it available to them. So what this is doing, I'm looking in the wrong tab, I'm supposed to be right here. So the idea of this is that it's Monday morning, everybody's excited, we have a big week, and we're going to look at, can we make it through Friday? Can we make it through the 5 days of this week without having any shortages? And I'm in the customer service area, and so here we have a situation where we have 21 items that we have promised, committed to customers, and we're not going to be able to ship them on time. So let's drill down into one and see what the story is. Okay, the story here is we have a replenishment that's coming in, but it's coming in way too late. None of these orders are going to be able to, so maybe we have to lean on production and then get them to get this available earlier. Let's take a look at another one here. Same kind of situation. We have production replenishments coming in, but they're coming in too late. So this concept then that we have for customer service shortages, we also have that in the production area where I'm going to do the similar thing. It's Monday morning. We have a big week ahead of us in production. Can I make it through the next 5 days? What are my shortages over the next 5 days? And here we have 37 items. And a little story, there's somebody there's 1 or 2 people on this call today from a company that I visited down in Tennessee a few years ago, and they were walking me through the plant and walking me through the production area. And they introduced me to this guy, and his desk was totally cleaned off, and this was the only report on his screen. And I had never met him before, and it was so exciting. It was real validating because we developed this about 15 years ago, first in Crystal, and then we converted it in programming, Visual Basic programming to dashboard. And here he was, and this was the only report he relied on to see what his shortages were. Okay, so we've gone through the first 4 areas, and so what we're going to talk about now is number 5, which is in the top 10 ways the dashboard is sales activity, actual sales versus your forecast. So I'm going to go back into sales and marketing. And the first thing I'm going to show you is in sales and marketing, this is the budgeting capability. And I can budget or forecast at the dollar level, at the units level, the target margin level, and the target selling price level. And I can do that at the customer, by salesperson, by item, items within customer, ship to addresses. And again, we have another person, I think there's 2 or 3 people on the audience today, longtime users, and this was developed for you, the ability to establish a budget. I think this was for all of the Walmart locations. So these were the alternate addresses, the shipping addresses for Walmart, and there was a budget for that, and being able to, and we accommodated that. You can, if you have your budget in Excel, we can import that, and then you can make adjustments to it, or you can create the budget from historical information and then make adjustments to it. And if you are seasonal oriented, you can change the skewing, the distribution of the budget month by month. And then you can have an unlimited number of budgets. So you could have the 2020 first quarter, 2020 second quarter, maybe the 2020 revised mid-year budget or revised. It doesn't really matter. You can have an unlimited number of budgets. Okay, so now that you know you have these budgets established, now the idea is, what can you do with it? So let's talk about this very first one, customer sales by customer. And I should mention that I just have some examples here. I'll just go through this real fast. By customer, by product category, by salesperson, by territory, by customer type, by customers and items. All of these reports are identical. The only thing that's different is what's here in the first column or two. So in terms of you taking a report or having us work with you to create some sample reports for you, there's only one report. And the idea then is that in this example, I took by customer, I have month-to-date invoiced, month-to-date invoiced budget. So this is actual versus budget. This is the variance, it subtracts the two. This is my month-to-date margin, and then I go through this year-to-date. So there's a lot of things that can go on. We have this month-to-date, year-to-date, quarter-to-date, this month versus last year, the same month last year, this month versus last month. So if I'm in the month of May, I can say month-to-date May versus month-to-date April. And to accommodate this, to make this work, we have added about 400 formulas to dashboard. So what I'm going to type in month-to-date MTD, and I'll sort this. So these are all the fields that we've added that are month-to-date oriented. So and this may be a little bit overwhelming at the beginning, but the idea is that when we talk about analyzing anything by anything, there's nothing that we can't analyze. And that would include using all the fields in Macola, like customer or territory or salesperson, as well as all the user-defined fields. So if you store your brand name or your brand codes in a user-defined field or sub-territories or whatever it might be, they are all covered. We will include any of the user-defined fields. So in this case here, at month-to-date MTD, we know what that is. PM means prior month. PY stands for prior year. One thing that is pretty cool in this is that, and we use this all the time, so we're now in the month of May. And so you're comparing this month of May versus last year's month of May. Well, so you need to know, okay, month to date this year versus month to date last year. That's pretty straightforward. But you may look at it a little differently. You may say, show me my month to date this month, and then compare that to the end of the same month last year. In other words, where did I end up at the end of May last year? Because that's my target. Okay. So let's go back here for a second, because we've now covered these 5 areas, and we're now going to dive into number 6 through 10. So, Anne, maybe this is a time to ask, are there any questions that are coming up? Or Anne, are you seeing any things that maybe I should be have overlooked talking about?
I do have one question about some of the graphs. Mike, could we go back to the graphs for a minute that
Sure.
you have in the overview? Let's look at those in a way that shows the daily activity rather than the accumulative. So let's right-click on the graph and show them how we can change that monthly invoice so they can see it. Nope, just right-click in the middle of the graph. Yep, and uncheck the cumulative values button. So with one little check, we're going to make this graph change completely. Yep. Here we go. Now we're seeing the action as it happens.
Yes. And Ann and I are both smiling as we talk about this, because this came up in a prior webinar, and it was one of these stump the instructor kind of questions, and I couldn't remember how to do this, and then Ann figured it out.
Neither could I. I went to the master, Mr. Adriano. So any of these graphs can have that, and you can flip back and forth or create one and then copy it. And exactly.
Yep, and this is very, very good. let's do that again. I just right-clicked and I brought up some things. Oh, another good thing, you can put in your corporate colors here. You can put in your favorite sport color. You can change any of the colors on these. So you see, for example, I changed these colors dramatically. And that's this cumulative value here. So I'm going to put this back. If I go up, each one of these applications has a red setup icon. So the only difference between a monthly graph and a daily graph is this button right here, monthly versus daily. That's the only difference. So these reports really are all the same. The graphs are all the same, but going from monthly and so on. And you can have a rolling as well as a cumulative from the beginning of the year. And you can, if you are units oriented or pounds oriented, you can change that to be for bookings. It would be entered units. You can have number of orders if you're tracking number of orders, margins, and so on. Okay, very good, Ann. Any other things that you want to mention?
I don't see any other questions. We usually like to make sure people know that because we're querying SQL for all this, that if you have other SQL tables outside Macola, we could bring them in together and connect them up with SQL data in Macola if you have something common, like if you've got an extra table that shows additional information about items or something like that. So this is all SQL driven, so it's relatively easy to bring in information from outside databases.
Yeah, that's very, very good. If you have, for example, a quality system that is in Microsoft Access or Microsoft SQL, we can include those and incorporate those within Dashboard. We also can incorporate, and we do this with our company constantly, you can bring in all synergy requests, synergy activity into Dashboard as well. Okay, so we're going to now go through numbers 6 through 10. I usually get behind on these webinars, and I think I'm right on time today, so I'm pretty pleased with that. Okay, so if there are no more questions, I'm going to go back in here and we're going to talk about inventory status. Now, if you recall, at the very beginning of the webinar, I mentioned that the Macola database is an excellent database, but it's lacking certain things. It's lacking certain reporting. It's lacking certain data that's needed to properly analyze things. So what we did was we created a program that runs in the middle of the night, and it recalculates, it goes back 24 months, and it recalculates inventory turns, months of inventory on hand, inventory average usage, 3, 6, and 12-month average usage, and 3, 6, and 12-month total usage. It calculates the on-hand quantity at the beginning and the end of the month for the past 24 months, and it calculates other fields, which are over here: the date of last usage, the date of last activity, date of last purchasing, date of last manufacturing, and the date of last sale. So these fields then, and our topic now is inventory status, is being able to, as inventory control, because this is your largest physical asset, your people assets number 1, this is inventory assets number 2, and it's the easiest asset to get out of control. So we're trying to provide in these cream color fields information that you can use to properly analyze your inventory. So I'll go through some examples of how this might be used. Well, first I'll tell you a funny story. The first time we implemented this, I was at a customer and they had a mandate. They just sold the company and the new owners came in and they said, okay, we're getting rid of dead inventory. So they used this, they looked up the number of months of inventory on hand, and they started dumping stuff in the garbage bin, the trash bin at night, the dumpster at night. So one day they discovered that the production manager, who didn't agree with this, he said, oh, we use this stuff all the time. and we have shortages of this all the time. So he was going into the dumpster and bringing it back into the plant. So they locked the dumpster.
It's too funny.
Yeah. Actually, he was using the months of inventory on hand, because the new company had a mandate that if you had over 24 months worth of inventory, you had to dump it. And that especially in the companies that are German owned, or big companies that are German owned, they don't reserve for inventory. They don't reserve for excess inventory in Europe. They mandate that you dump it. So even if it's your highest moving part, you're still obligated to only keep 24. Well, anyway, let's go back to what we have here. So the idea being that if you wanted to do an analysis, so let's say I wanted to, I'm going to select just my purchase parts. So I'm going to put in a P here. So this row here, for you, those of you maybe brand new to the software, this is not a mistake. This blank row here is what we call the filter row. So I put a P in here, and it brings in just the purchase parts. And let's say I want to just bring in the Cincinnati location. I'll just type in CIN. It'll now narrow it down just to Cincinnati, and so on. So to give you a feel for how this might look for an individual part, you're seeing what we have here: inventory turns, months of inventory on hand. This is my 3, 6, and 12 month trending, my average usage over the past 3, 6, and 12 months. And then we have all these fields here: date of last usage, and so on. The usage, I should mention, this follows, not closely follows, this identically follows all the Apex rules. So when we developed this, we hired my Apex coach, and he basically validated. We went through especially on inventory turns, that's really, really complex. For those of you who maybe are new to the software, we have a document called our pulse definitions document. And if you don't have a copy of that, please request that, because that gives you the definition of what all of these mean. And the usage is the one that is a lot of times a little bit, people extend the real definition of usage. But let me give you an example here. I'm going to go into this inventory detail view, and I'm going to put in the part number called E3089. And we're going to take a look at how this is being used. Okay, in white, this is real-time, on-hand quantity allocated, so on, real-time up to the second. Then everything else that's in cream, these cream colors are yellowish. These are fields that we've created ourselves. So I'll give you an example here. We know about some of this. Year-to-date usage. In Macola, if it's January and February, if you're on a physical year, a 12/31 year, the year-to-date usage doesn't do you any good at the beginning of the year. So we have a 12-month rolling average. Here's 12 months usage, and then average per month usage. Then this detail here, this shows you by location, by bin, by lot, what's going on. But what I'm really wanting to show you is this historical usage. So again, this is for one part. This is my quantity on hand, month by month by month, something that's not in the Macola database. So my quantity on hand by month, what I purchase, what I produce, what I use, if I had transfers, and then my inventory turns month by month by month. Then the next level down here, so you're knowing how this works, we're doing an MRP regen for this one single part. So now we're taking our historical information, and now we're extending it into the future. So this is basically showing us our net on hand forecasted into the future. And then if this was a manufactured part, I would see the bill of material. And then we have a where used. I'll extend this a little bit more. We have a where used for every single item. So I'm just kind of extending how this inventory status report works and how the information is obtained. Okay, so we're going to go on to number 7 now, which is product costing analysis. And I think I really want to talk, the costing analysis that we're doing is is real specialized. It's for people who are mostly on standard costing and are looking at actual versus their standards and are looking at variance analysis. And I don't think if there's anybody who's on standard costing, circle back to me. But the idea is that we've been developing very sophisticated reports. This is kind of one of my specialty areas, along with the inventory, is to be able to pinpoint where things aren't going quite right. Okay, so let's talk about number 8 now, which is eliminate the manual keying of purchase orders. As a company, we are focusing on several tedious areas. My wife tells me not to refer to them as drudgery areas, but they are manual keying of purchase orders, manual keying of customer orders, and manual keying of cash receipts. And today we're going to talk about the manual keying, or the elimination of the manual keying of purchase orders. So we're going to show you our purchase order generator. And what we're doing is you identify who you, so I am going to make believe that I'm Penny, and I have the Cincinnati location to worry about. And there's rules behind this. They are your company's rules. How do you determine when you need to replenish something? And I'm going to say refresh. So what this is now showing is this is going to show all of the products that Penny is supposed to be ordering today. So it lists the vendors. So what I can do with each one of them is I can hit the plus sign, and that will expand this. Let me maximize this. So we have these fields are all to be able to show you are things accurate or not, because it's recommending what the order quantity is, and you can override that for each one. But if your settings are correct, you're going to say yes, yes, I want to order, that's yes, that's fine, that's yes, no, I don't want to order this, yes, I want to order this. And you say create, and here's the purchase order. Now the yellow is to help you along a little bit. If I hover over here, it's saying, whoops, I'm supposed to order this in increments or with a minimum quantity of 60. So I'll just fix those so that we get the yellow to go away. And the yellow just means that there was a warning. It doesn't prevent me from actually doing that. So what happens now is I can make this a released or an unreleased order. And if I hit save, then it creates, in this case, an unreleased purchase order in Macola. I have total flexibility here. Even the flexibility, if I decide at the last minute to not order this from Bearing Supply and order it from somebody else, I can do that. If you are weight oriented, we have the total weight. If you're getting discounts based on weight, if you're having to pack a shipping container, a ship container, we have total cubic meter calculations as well, and so on. And if you decide at the last minute, nope, there's something wrong with this, I'm going to eliminate it, or I want to add a new item, I can. So the idea being then that I hit save, and then I'll come out of this, and then these items would then disappear, and then I would be down to the next one, the next order. I would order this. And these fields here, this is all to help you when you last ordered it, what you last ordered. If you have a vendor contract, it shows you that. But these are all fields that it has its own column chooser to determine. And the idea again is I click on that and I say, there's the purchase order. I hit save, and then I come back. This one has disappeared. So the idea being then at the end of the day, you're working this list down. So anytime you see something, it means that you have not completed your, in this case, Penny did not complete her purchasing for the day. And again, this has settings. So this is, we customize this to the unique way that you order. Maybe you order based on always wanting to keep a certain number of weeks on hand or months on hand. Maybe you order based on getting below a reorder level. Everybody has, so we basically interview you and then come and decide what we put in these settings based on what the feedback that we're getting from you. Okay. There's a question that always comes up, and I'm going to talk about that before we go, and that is in people ask, can you put the months across the top? So I'm going to talk just for a second about that, and the idea being that I want to well, I can't find the report for the moment. I'm sorry, I dove into this, but the idea is that, and you've seen it before, where we can have columns like month to date, year to date, or we can say this is the activity for January, February, March, April, May, and so on. Okay, so let's talk about the 9th item that we have here, which is called past due purchase orders. And there's something unique about purchasing and Macola, and that is, part of it is that purchasing is a very forward-looking job. And what we have is as we have people, customers start with dashboard, this is the screen that they focus on sometimes, and they'll say, this is not right. This stuff came in a long time ago. No, we don't have any remaining quantities left on this order. You know, this isn't right. Or we closed this order out and it shouldn't show up here anymore. So what happens is, and I'll tell you another funny story. We were demonstrating this to a customer one day, and we were demonstrating using their data. So in the middle of the meeting, the president stands up and says, stop, stop, stop. So nobody could figure out what's going on. And he says, call Mary and call Jim and get him in here right now. And they're saying, Mary and Jim get in there, and he says, Mary and Jim, do you know, have you seen this data? What's the deal here? Why do we have purchase orders from 2 and 3 years ago that are still showing up on this report? True story. And the idea would be, well, we run our open order report constantly. These have never appeared on our Macola report. Well, that's because they put a cutoff date in the Macola report of today, and it never went back and looked at the old ones. So there's a little anomaly in this, and that is if you're in the purchasing or supply chain area, you cannot close a purchase order with a C status. In other words, you would say, oh, this is the order's closed. I'm going to change it to a C status. That's the closed status. That's right. No, that's not right. Nobody ever mentioned that it has to be changed to an H. So in the case of where you ordered 100,000 of something and 99,540 came in, if you changed it to a C status, both MRP and dashboard and everything else in Macola will still think that that remaining, whatever it might be, a few hundred, is still on order, is still remaining to come in, is still being relied upon when you look at your production shortages. So this report is nothing unique about the report. It just shows you your schedule to be received. But the idea being that you shouldn't have anything in there that's more than a couple months old. In other words, this vendor is not, Dayton Printing is not going to be just feverishly working to send you an order from 2 or 3 years ago. Okay, the 10th area that we've talked about is this customizing reports. So we talked a little bit about that earlier, but I'm going to go and look at another report here. And that is in this top vendor report. I'm going to expand on that, and this will just be maybe a little bit of a review in terms of I'm talking about customizing this report, and I'm just using this as an example. So this top vendor report, first of all, just to give you a little explanation, you decide how many vendors you want to have on the report, and I'm looking back at either past, in this case, 36 months. Maybe you want to look back on just year to date, but the idea is that this is how you can look at, who are your top vendors and so on. in this case, I have 36 months. So we talked before, I can move these fields around. Maybe I don't want this terms code on here. Maybe I don't want this description on here. Maybe I want to add some other fields to this. So I go to the column chooser. Remember, we talked about this before. This is the grid. And we've changed all the fields in here to business English. I'm going to sort this down so they're coming in looking correct. And I'm going to bring in the state. We'll take something simple, the vendor state. Here's the vendor state. And I'm going to also bring in the city. So I just type in CITY. Here's the vendor city. Now these maybe not be great examples because you're maybe going to bring in something more complex. If you're just getting started with dashboard, I would use this full caption. Sometimes we abbreviate things over here in this column caption. I should mention also, because we have a number of people today who are using the software, is if you are an administrator, all of these names can be renamed. So, for example, in some people call it, they don't call it the product category, they call it the product class, or they call it the product something else. So feel free to rename. This will also allow you to rename all the user-defined fields. So let's bring in those. These are all the user-defined fields that are in here. And if I needed to, I could change any of these to make them, what I store in those fields. So in this case, we added the city to this. And we're just showing the flexibility of adding the city. Here is the city. Again, I can move things around. Maybe I like to have the vendor number over here. And again, I have full drill down into all this information. This is showing me what I paid to the vendor year to date this year and what I paid last year. And then this is showing me the receipts versus what I paid. So some people look at it based on receipts. Some people look at it based on what's paid.
Mike, can we go back to the column chooser for just a minute? Sure. I know we're just about out of time. I just wanted you hit the create custom formula button on the left side so that people see that they can create. We've created hundreds of formulas, but you can create your own. And it's pretty darn easy.
Yeah, very, very, very good point, Ann. Thank you. If you are familiar, everybody's familiar with Excel, you can create all the identical formulas in Dashboard as you can in Excel. You can take something and divide it or multiply it. You can take one field, divide it by the other, or multiply it by the other. You can call it anything that you want to. That's a very good point, and I think that I may have some ones up here that I have. It kind of tells you that this is a formula. Yeah, I don't see any ones here in the vendor area, but yes, so that's a very good point. You click on create, you give it the name that you want, and then you say okay. And if the fields are already there, you click on fields, and you can just take this field here, this paid. So let's say we're going to divide that by 12. So I take the paid amount, divide by 12. There it is. I called it something goofy. And there it is. Oh, and then now that I've divided by 12, maybe I want to go in and I want to make it currency. I don't want any decimals. I just want a currency, no decimals. And there we are. Kind of hard to pronounce that word, SAF, okay. So hopefully that's given you a good overview in our 1 hour. I went over our 10 items. If I was going too fast or you want to review it, we will have this recorded. And did you have something you wanted to mention?
Nope, I don't see any questions from anybody unless somebody wants to unmute and ask something.
Okay. Well, if you are a potential Dashboard customer, hopefully today has influence you that you need to take a deeper dive, or just go ahead with ordering the software. If you are an existing customer, we sure appreciate your ongoing support. And if you have any questions, again, if I go up here to help and I go to about, you can send or phone our support desk directly. We have unlimited phone support and unlimited training and unlimited retraining. So if you've forgotten something, you can call up or you can send an email. And we have these overview sessions. Tomorrow we're going to be having a fundamentals class. Today was just sit back and listen. Tomorrow's fundamental class will be, you'll have a handout for a handout to follow through the exercises. So again, thank you all, and enjoy, stay safe, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.